1,
2,
3, let's go!
One day, when I was 12 years old, I remember I went to the washroom, removed my underwear, and realized I had a brownish stain on it. I wasn't home, so I immediately yelled, "Mom, I think I just pooped my underwear. Something's wrong." My mom laughed. Of course she knew that was not poop. She knew I had gotten my first period. Hello, my name is Valeria Moncada, and today I'm here to talk about periods. That day I got my first period. My mom took me out for a coffee date to chat like grown-ups about all the changes that were happening to my body. My dad wrote me a letter saying how proud he was of the woman I was becoming. You see, whenever I recall this story, I feel incredibly privileged. However, at that time, I didn't consider myself privileged. I was just a 12-year-old girl trying not to stain her bedsheets. Honestly, I genuinely thought this was what happened to every girl around the world who got their first period. This was a personal thing to me because this was the only story I knew. My story. It was something that we didn't discuss with my friends. This was a personal matter for 10 years until the day my best friend introduced me to the concept period poverty. Period poverty is the lack of access to menstrual products due to financial constraints. Wait, hold on a second. Are you telling me that not everyone has access to pads and tampons? You see, to me, purchasing menstrual products had always been sort of automatic, What I did all the time, I got my period today, I went to the store. I got my period next month, I went to the store. And so on and on and on. So it had never occurred to me that someone couldn't afford them, even though I considered that I was mindful of the hardships that people in low socioeconomic conditions face. But before I even continue, I want we all to understand how important menstrual products are in a menstruator's life. Just picture this. You are bleeding inside out from your vagina. You can't do anything to stop the bleeding and can't afford to buy the only few products available to absorb that blood. So what do? Do you just walk around with a huge blood stain in your pants? I don't think so. You will use whatever you have to absorb that blood. And what is whatever you have? That could be newspaper, maybe plastic bags, toilet paper if you have. This is a real picture from a campaign from an organization called Every Month, aiming to raise awareness about the lack of access to menstrual products in Manchester. And it illustrates perfectly what period poverty is. Just imagine going to school with a plastic bag in your underwear. Going to work with cardboard in between your legs. This is not only unhygienic, but it also affects your self-esteem tremendously. In fact, it affects it so much that the UN Population Fund report mentions that some uneducated girls engage in sexual transactions to have access to menstrual products so that they can continue doing their daily activities without getting behind. I don't know about you, but I find this outrageous. And how many people do you actually think that find themselves in this sort of situations? Well, according to a research conducted by Plan International in the UK, 1 out of 10 women struggle to afford menstrual products. Okay, so what does this mean? Let's make a huge assumption here and put this at a macro level. Let's say that the world's population is 7.7 billion people. And according to the World Bank, about half of the world's population are women. So that leaves us with about 3.85 billion women around the world, for which actually a huge proportion are actually menstruating right now. And if 1 out of 10 struggle to afford menstrual products, that means that about 385 million women struggle to afford menstrual products. I guess we can now agree that we're talking about a problem that affects millions. It wasn't until I realized this that I couldn't forgive myself for spending so many years of my life hiding my period behind my pads, tampons, painkillers, eating chocolate, ice cream. I was so busy hiding my own period that it never crossed my mind how other people dealt with theirs. Did you know that the global value of menstrual products is $40 billion? And on top of that, some governments are also benefiting from this biological need with the so-called Tampon Tax. The Tampon Tax is a tax that tampons have, obviously, but because they are considered a luxury item. Excuse me, luxury. So then I guess buying toilet paper is also considered a luxury? Because in the same way we can't control poop and pee, we can't control menstrual bleeding. And in my opinion, if toilet paper is not considered a luxury, then menstrual products shouldn't either. Canada used to have this tampon tax, but they abolished it in 2015, which is only 6 years ago, but still we will give them credit for that. But in the US, our neighbors, they still have the tampon tax in more than half of the states. Now I'm wondering, when we will ever understand that access to menstrual products is a human right? There is plenty of research that shows that one of the top reasons of school absenteeism for girls is the poor management of their periods. Sometimes because their parents don't want to send them to school during these days, and some other times because girls don't want to go to school during these days with a plastic bag in between their legs. So they skip school for about a week per month, which adds up to about 10 weeks per year that they stay behind. In my opinion, this is one of the fundamental issues of gender inequality, and it is the lack of access to menstrual products. It is here that the gap starts, and only grows after. It is not possible that we get condoms for free in so many places, including academic institutions and government clinics, and yet we have to purchase menstrual products, and sometimes even pay high taxes on top of it. If we go to a public restroom, we will most certainly find toilet paper, and in some, we will also find menstrual products, but guess what? We have to pay for them with coins, as if we were getting candy from a machine. This is very upsetting. Access to menstrual products is a real social issue, and it is so hard to tackle it, mainly because we simply don't talk about it. If we think of the most popular social issues, we will likely think of poverty, maybe, hunger, homelessness, and how many would we have to mention for us to include access to menstrual products on this list? Probably a lot, right? Just imagine, if it's already so hard to tackle well-known social issues, how hard it is to tackle issues that we can't even bring into a conversation without feeling a little shameful. This is what we call period shaming. Period shaming is an umbrella term for the stigma and taboos regarding menstruation. It includes misinformation about the menstrual cycle, it humiliates women for being women, and it makes us feel guilty about having our periods, as if it was some sort of inconvenience. Even though culture and religion influence a lot of the perceptions we have about menstruation, the truth is that periods are not a topic that pops into a conversation, let's say, naturally and spontaneously. Over the decades, as a society, We have associated periods with negative connotations such as shame, guilt, disease, disgust. And yes, some of these associations are cultural, but some others, honestly, they're just a clear example of gender inequality and the role of women in society. I want you all to understand that saying the P word out loud is not a bad word. It is okay to say it. I'm wondering, how come we have socially accepted many swear words into our daily expressions, and yet we feel ashamed to say that we are in our periods? Why are we more comfortable carrying around a bottle of wine than a box of tampons? Why do we whisper to our friends to ask for a pad as if we were talking about something illegal? If you menstruate, have you ever find yourself in this situation where you're in a public space and it would be too obvious for you to take your whole backpack with you to the washroom? So you engage in this sort of mission to pull out the tampon from the backpack and then somehow pull it up your sleeve and safely pull it out when you have safely accomplished the mission of arriving at the washroom without being spotted with a tampon in hand. This may sound a little funny, but it is actually true. And I think it is not fair that we have accepted this as the norm. We are not going to yell if we're spotted with a tampon in our hands. And it was when I finally accepted that period poverty and period shaming existed at a global level that I started thinking at a local level in my home country, El Salvador. El Salvador is a beautiful small country in Central America. You see, there are many organizations tackling poverty, education, access to clean water, and other social issues. So I started digging into period poverty, and I found that there were almost no efforts being done to tackle this issue. In fact, I found that the national educational curriculum doesn't have a comprehensive sexual and reproductive health unit, which means that 12-year-old girls and boys are growing up with lack of menstrual health education. To me, this was a gap that had to be tackled. So I designed a social project that I called TEDxUBCStudio. Menstrual, from menstruation, and actua, that means action in Spanish. I got grants for girl change makers and Days for Girls to develop it in 2019. With a team of amazing women, we led educational workshops in schools and community centers to address the biological process of the menstrual cycle and also raised awareness about period shaming and the importance of normalizing this topic. We reached more than 1,000 participants and also donated reusable menstrual pads, which are just like a regular cotton pad but made out of cloth, so it can be washed for up to 5 years, which is actually a sustainable option that replaces the unhygienic products that they were currently using. The workshops were for all folks, not just for girls. And it was actually impressive to see that some of the challenges that we faced was that the school principals themselves were the ones who asked us if it was okay to send only girls to the workshop. Just keep in mind that El Salvador is a very conservative society, but still, it is here that we start stigmatizing the periods and by thinking that this is an only girls topic. And then some other times, 15-year-old boys didn't know at all what menstruating was. And they were so misinformed that in fact, there was this one time that about a 12-year-old boy approached me and asked me if that white thing that came out of his penis was boy's period. This made me realize the magnitude of this issue. I share this with you today because the best thing we can do to tackle period poverty is to talk about periods with everyone. Saying the P word out loud has so much power. It normalizes every time we say it. If we can take away one thing from this talk is this thought. Period poverty must be tackled to achieve gender equality. If you care about gender equality, you care about period poverty. When I was 22 years old, I went to the washroom, removed my underwear, and realized I had a bloodish stain on it. I was at school, so I immediately turned around to see if I had any menstrual products available, maybe. And they were. I actually had some menstrual products available. The University of British Columbia now has free disposable tampons and pads in some of their washrooms. And I think this should be everyone's story. Because just imagine, if I didn't have access to any menstrual products that day, I would have had to use some toilet paper or whatever other product I had available that day. Just as many other girls do around the world every day. I hope I was able to challenge some of your thoughts about menstruation and help you understand that talking about periods is the least we can do to start tackling this reality.